Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for taking time and joining this event. A little bit about me, I'm Kishore. I lead the Friends of Figma community for Bangalore in India. I work as a senior UX designer at Salesforce. I have Twani with me from Friends of Figma team. Feel free to ask any questions regarding the community or anything about the session. I would suggest all you to use the Q&A section and use the chat for sharing your thoughts. So towards the end of the session, we'll take the Q&A. So without any further delay, let me introduce the speaker. So welcome Shivangi. Shivangi is a product designer at Google. So she'll be sharing insights on how to crack your whiteboarding interview. One thing I'm gonna say is like I have gone through the things that Shivangi have prepared, and it's pretty insightful. So I would suggest everyone to stay till the end of the session and hear from Shivangi from her real-time experience of cracking the whiteboarding interviews. And we also have a bonus free resource giveaway towards the end of the session. So stay till then. Shivangi, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Kishore. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining in on a Saturday morning. Very excited to see around like more than 100 people join in here. So I will be sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see. Uh, is it visible?
Yes, we are good to go.
Sure. So, just to give a quick glimpse of what we are going to do today, I'll basically talk about my experience of giving whiteboarding interviews. I have about 5 years of experience into design. I hadn't done a lot of whiteboarding like before, like an year ago. And last year I started like giving interviews. That's where whiteboarding came in. This is also because I joined like my first company through the campus, and there was not much time for a whiteboarding. And what I realize, it's very different from like a real time full time job, or like even like doing work in a company, because time becomes a very constrained thing, and you need to go in with a structure, and but also be flexible with like whatever new information comes in, being more adaptable and how to be likable, because it's not just your ideation or discovery that they're trying to judge. They're also trying to judge like your behavior and how do you adapt, or how fun you would be to work with, and those sort of things. So just to give a quick introduction, I'm Shivangi. I'm working at Google as a product designer now. I've worked in certain different companies like Microsoft, Samsung before, and I've done my master's from IIT Bombay, and I come from an architecture background. Done my architecture from NIT Hamirpur, and worked on some significant projects like Central Vista, New Delhi, Parliament Design, and those sort of things. So yeah, excited to be here and connect with you. So I'll go with like some tips and some structure, and then that I use to like whiteboard, and then we'll go towards like some examples of the things, like some of the exercises that I've done so far in the past year. So I've documented like about like 15 different exercises. We'll talk about like different companies based on like the time that you have to whiteboard, or like the scale of the company, those sort of things as well. And we can even talk about like take home exercises, or product thinking versus design thinkings. We'll open up for like Q&A for specific questions as well. So another part of like my introduction is basically the personal things which can't be missed out. So I like to play a lot of board games. Every Friday, mostly like over the weekends, that's my favorite hobby to do. I like to illustrate a lot. So like making quick, fun things, more colorful things. And I'm also available on Topmate. I like love to like connect with the community, talk about like portfolios, case studies, even do like mock fight pudding sessions there as well. So you can connect with me there. I'll share my links in that itself as well. So, why is whiteboarding the most challenging part of the interview loop? At least that's what I feel. I'm not sure if you also feel the same. You can write down your answers, like why do you think it is the most challenging? What I feel, it's because it kind of puts you on the spot, and you cannot like totally prepare for it. It's very uncertain. So new information may come in for which you might need to like adapt to that information. The person who's interviewing me, you don't know them like a lot to kind of collaborate with them as well. So there's a certain tension. So ice breaking is required. So there are like certain different factors like that when that comes into play in whiteboarding. Now, just to like get into ease, you need to know like what the interviewers are trying to like evaluate, and these are the four things that which I feel the interviewers are trying to evaluate in most cases. So first is the product sense. You can also call it like strategic thinking or like analytical thinking to identify what is the, or like even define the correct problems, because most of the time the problem statement that they would give you would be like too broad or like not very direct. So most of the time you'll need to like identify what you're going to prioritize and solve for in that like limited amount of time. So you need to make sure that it's just like maybe one simple problem that you're solving for one specific persona, not kind of acknowledging like acknowledging that there are other personas and other ways as well, but then trying to like restrict it based on the time that you have at hand. Second is the communication, how you work with the interviewer, how do you collaborate with them, how do you make them feel interested in your stories, like maybe putting in analogies or like making a persona up and then taking them to places like while you're iterating, that becomes like really interesting to share rather than like specific like jargon terms or like uh, terms related to the industry, right? So it becomes relatable and interesting as well. Now coming to the design process, so kind of sometimes people become like clueless what to do next. So that's where like a design process or a framework comes in. Doesn't mean that it is like set in stone. Similar to like maybe design thinking process, it is kind of very rigid, but it's also becomes flexible as you like go about exploring different problems. So you can kind of modulate it based on like how big is the problem, how small is the problem, or like maybe which part you should skip or not skip based on the problem and those kind of things. And then is the pressure handling. So it's a new person you're talking to, there is going to be new information on the way. Don't feel hesitant to like go back, because it's like an iterative process, like your real life design problem. Sometimes you feel like, okay, we have defined the problem in this manner, but some new information comes in. You can feel free to like basically go ahead and change the problem definition itself if the interview is not happy with like what problems you're solving for or those sort of things. So that becomes really important, I feel. Now coming to, because I've given like interviews for like different set of times, so whiteboarding round can range from basically from 30 minutes to 2 hour itself as well. And it also differs, what I've seen in patterns is for like the scale of the company, from an MNC to maybe a small startup. So for a small startup, if you have less time, I've usually seen that they kind of try to evaluate you based on like a specific screen or a dashboard design. Usually the problem statement is going to be from the same industry as the company is from, and it becomes more metric focused, like in you need to like increase the growth or retention rate for the user. Those sort of things become the problem statement. When you go a little bit more on time, for like small scale companies, they are usually very specific to the product that they have, and they'll may even give you like a very specific problem related to the product that they're currently facing or have faced in the past. This is to make sure that you'll be able to work in the similar tech, or you're able to work with this kind of an industry and process. Here it becomes important to even like validate the problems as well, like what you're solving for. Setting up like focusing on the process that you would follow in a real life situation. So even though you're not doing research, are you able to like visualize through like what would your steps have been if you were in like a real time situation where you're trying to solve this specific problem for the company. So that becomes more important. And then coming to like large scale companies, if it's like a short duration, mainly you will see it will be like very conceptual problem, like maybe solve it for like old age people, and maybe this is the problem related to like mobility or exercising. When it becomes like more in time, it becomes more important to have like variety of thoughts, because you can get drifted towards like different kind of problems. So every time the problem statement is there, there can be like various uh, pathways that you can go into, right? Because the underlying problem can have like multitude of pain points for the user, and for the given time you need to like focus on just one. So that clarity needs to be really thought through. And then how do you kind of evaluate your final design that you have come up to, and how does that map to the metrics of the problem statement that was given to you at hand? So all that thing kind of become important. And how do you think in terms of the quantity of ideas? So quality here I would say becomes a little less important than the quantity. it it would focus more on like how, what kind of variety of ideas that you are able to think of from different perspectives, or maybe even changing the mode from like digital to like tangible and those sort of things. Now, coming to like, I've also seen patterns in terms of like the kind of prompts that you would get from the companies. So they can be like really broad or narrow. Those are the two main categories. So in the broad category, it can be about like building a new product, such as like design a solution for users to improve their health and lifestyle. It's very open-ended. You don't know like who you're designing for, what sort of company, what is the company goal, those sort of things. So you need to figure everything out and then build something, focus on a specific problem. And it can be conceptual, as I talked about earlier. So it can be like maybe designing a digital remote for the TV where you can even show ads. So how would you go about doing that? Or if you had to like design for your grandparents to make their lives easier, that is also very broad and open ended. It can go into any direction, right? Sometimes it becomes very narrow. So usually I've seen like in smaller scale companies improve something existing. It can be like their specific product or something existing, like maybe that's well known, like Uber or maybe Swiggy, those sort of things. And then it can be growth oriented, like I said, like focusing more on the metric side of things, like improve user retention or like checkout rates and those sort of things. So how do you kind of balance both becomes important. And be like ready to like expect anything from any company. You can only like anticipate what would come your way, but be open to see like what kind of comes and then improvise based on that. So I've like created this simple step, kind of a framework for myself that I usually use. It's not set in stone. Like sometimes when they are like focusing on a certain area, the time kind of changes, or like when certain steps are kind of missed as well. Or maybe I'll do like a user workflow before everything else, because I'm not able to think of many ideas, and the solutions or ideas may come from a user workflow at times as well. So I'll talk about this briefly. Let me just stop sharing and share again. So this is the set of resources that I've curated for everyone to see. So it consists of like a cheat sheet. It has like a summary of the steps that I usually use through. I will go into like the details of like what it consists of. But apart from that, I've also like put in the different whiteboarding sessions that I had. So these are all like real-time case studies. Some are like really bad examples, and you'll know and how to judge what is a good or a bad example of a whiteboarding session. So there are like mainly these five key parts to it, from like discovery to defining the problem statement, ideating, creating a workflow, and then coming to wireframing. So I've like coded them according to that. So you'll see like some of them will have like all of the specifics in the same order that is written here, and that's the general pattern that I've seen. But sometimes you'll see like, okay, the interviewer might want to focus on like the discovery a little more, and you might want to like validate the problem. So then how do you go about thinking about like the research methods or like the complete analysis? How would you go about doing those things, or even prioritizing different features, or like maybe different problems to solve for those kind of a metrics? Sometimes I've also seen some parts are like skipped. So as I was talking about, from like discovery, I really jumped into the journey mapping or the workflow because I was not able to think of the next step, think about the user problems, and that becomes important, like to be very adaptable in the process. So you know what all steps are there, but then if you're stuck, you should like skip to a different space itself. Those sort of things. And you can even use like different methodologies. So these are like some of my from some of my friends. You can even use like a Word document to just ideate as well. So here's an example for that. How do you do that? You can even use an Excel sheet. Sometimes it's good to like do like maybe a crazy eight on an iPad and sketch things out rather than like being stick to like a computer screen or a Figma screen. And then I have some like practice prompts that you can usually like use before your interview, because practice is really important in a whiteboarding. You might know everything else, but then you might get stuck. So practicing with a friend, or maybe on top end you can connect with a lot of mentors to do that as well. I've also put in like a practice template that you can use with these prompts to kind of more kind of put it in a structured format, and then coming to ideas. And lastly, I'll talk about the AI whiteboarding, but let's go into the cheat sheet a little bit more. So the first part about a whiteboarding session is mostly about discovery. So it becomes important to like ask a lot of questions, and asking like clarifying and contextual questions that actually add value. Do not ask anything that you're not going to use in your designing. So it can be like the initial questions can be like very open ended towards like, okay, why are we even like trying to solve this problem? Is it even a problem? Or you can get clarification towards like what should be your approach to the whiteboarding itself. Like uh, do they want like one wireframe of like one in-depth solution of the problem, or would they want to see more of a variety of ideas? So you'll get a sense of that in the initial part itself through the interview. Then you can ask questions like, why are we even building this in the first place? What is the time duration? So is it like a short-term thing that you want to achieve, like an MVP, or it is a long-term vision where you can visualize like very futuristic technology as well, which might require a lot of time to build those kind of things. Which market you are designing for, it becomes particularly important when you're interviewing across like different geos, because the culture might be very different towards like maybe the shopping experience, or like how do they save money, those sort of things, even the currency differences. So it's like important to like acknowledge that, and then set your constraints towards one particular geo towards the start itself. And then how does this specific problem align to the company vision? It's more towards like product thinking, but it becomes important when you are doing brainstorming around like specific well-known companies, like let's say maybe Spotify or Uber. You know, like what is their Uber goal and how this problem statement is going to like attach to that. Then comes understanding the users and understanding the business problem. So you can take either one before or later, whichever gives you better clarity. There are certain methods to understand users. Like one of them that is used in product management is called segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So in segmentation, you try to see like what are the different age groups, geos, gender that the users are from. So it can be like, let's say, it can be like a product such as like Google Maps. So a lot of people kind of use it, but when you're trying to designing it in a whiteboarding, you would want to like focus on a specific set. In that case, it becomes important to acknowledge everything, but then go to target a specific age group, or based on like which one will have the most impact or the most reach at that point. Now, coming to positioning, once you have set your target audience, how do you define the persona, create empathy maps? So, empathy maps are basically kind of trying to think the feet of the users, like how do they think, feel, what do they do or act. And the best way to put it in like a single line and during the whiteboarding is this format, where you say like, let's say Ben, who is maybe a gardener who wants to like make a beautiful garden so that he can like improve the how beautiful this garden looks, or something like that. So it can curated in a way that is more empathetic and understanding towards the user, what action they are trying to take to reach a specific goal, right? And then there are like certain common pain points. So, and sometimes the pain points are not listed when you're specially given to like design a new product, but there are like a certain common pain points which are very human, such as like impatience, limited memory, less motivation, or a lot of errors that people make, misjudgment. So you can take from like these itself as well and try to solve for that. How do we like make it more efficient or easy to use, or those sort of things. What I've also realized are especially in whiteboarding, personas are a must. So a lot of people feel like, why do we even not need persona? It kind of restricts us from thinking about a lot of people who would actually be our users. But what I feel is like it kind of helps you build a common understanding of who the user is between you and the interviewer. It also helps you like empathize with them and visualize how they kind of think, and how that problem or that product kind of fits into their day-to-day lives, and if it would be able to like make a difference for them or not. It will also help you like ideate a lot of ideas as well, sort of like giving you like a 360-degree view of a person, and not like being restricted to like a certain user group. It also helps you like address back to and the user, because you cannot like call out all the characteristics whenever you're trying to refer to them. So giving them a name, a personality really helps. Now, coming to the business goals, so most of the time it will be given to you in a straightforward fashion, in terms of like maybe improve the metrics and those sort of things. Sometimes it may be not, so then you'll have to like think of something, uh, especially when it's a new product to be designed. You might need to like call out any assumptions about the business at this point of time as well. Mention them clearly, like I'm this, because at times when it is about like very specific complicated product that the company already has and has a wealth of information among them, it might cause them to think that they know like this is how it would work. But then if you call out like, okay, this is what you're assuming based on what you feel, that would really help clear out like those differences of like why you're not able to think in a way that they had thought about their itself initially. Also best to like go with some knowledge of their competes, especially important for like when you're interviewing for mid to small companies, because they might want to give you like a statement, problem statement that is in the same industry, or maybe it can be sometimes the same product that they are kind of building. Now comes the defining part. So it becomes important because a lot of people just start from there. They feel like, okay, I've defined, kind of discovered everything. By the way, it's very important to also document whatever has been discovered so far, like note down the important points only, and kind of make them bold or underline whatever you are feeling that you'll use it further to define the problem statement or what you're trying to solve. So you cover like 5 main pain points, but then what you're going to focus on, try to like make them bold, make that bold, and whatever you're going to carry forward in the define phase. It can be like based on priority, which one you feel is the most valuable to solve for at this point. But you can like basically call out why you're picking that specific problem statement. So this is the format that is usually recommended for defining the goal statement. So you can say like, our product or specific feature that you're designing will let users do some activity which will affect what are the different users or maybe a different persona by how like some, what activity, and then we will measure effectiveness by specific metric. So the last line becomes very important, to kind of understand that you're not just thinking about the problem at hand, but you're also thinking about evaluating how you measure success as well. And it becomes important to define it at this point, because then towards the end you'll be able to like compare your different ideas, explorations, or even your final design with this specific metric, right? So it can be a little tough to crack the defining phase, but what you need to do is like make something up and be flexible and open to like come back and change that if you think it's not moving forward in a way that you would want to. Make sure it's not very narrow or too broad, so that you're able to think about like multiple ideas and not be restricted by like a specific area, or like go in just depth of it instead of the breadth. The idea is to like have like multiple ideas and different 360-degree views that you can have. Now comes the ideation. So this is also kind of important, where this is basically where you're kind of showing your creativity aspect of things. There are multiple ways you might know come across that you go forward with. What I felt is most effective in whiteboarding in a quick pace scenario is how might we's. And there are like different methods that I'll talk about in the how might we, how to frame your how might we's. So the common mistake here, what I see people is like they try to judge their ideas even before like telling that out. So the best method is like not to think about how bad the idea is, just make sure to like communicate that and put that down. We'll do the evaluation part later, but make sure to like keep all the ideas upfront without feeling like pressured about the quality of ideas at this point. How you can use how might we is basically, let's say if you're trying to like define a question, where we're saying like Darren, who's a concert goer, he needs to keep track of maybe the concert tickets because they need tickets when they go through the security for the concert, right? So how do you create for this specific problem statement so that you're able to like produce multitude of ideas based on problem statement? So one way is like to amp up the good in this problem statement. So think of how might you use the positives in the problem as a solution. Let's say you can say like how might we make this like a fun competition among friends to like have the concert tickets, or like the opposite. So like how might we make it to like lose tickets, a way for people to lose tickets, or like status quo itself. Like you might think maybe it's paper tickets so that it's easier to lose, but what if we make it non-paper and make it digital? It will be really difficult then in that case. You can even break the POV into pieces. So let's say especially helpful when the problems are like long, complex, requires like a workflow to think of and then a specific point. So how might we make the customer's ticket from getting lost? How might we make the lost tickets easier for the security team to handle? So we're kind of shifting towards the different interaction as well, like going not just focusing on Darren, but also the security aspect of it as well. And then kind of trying to remove the bad. The how do you, so it's kind of an opposite to like the first one, amp up the good. Here we're trying to just remove the bad. Let's say how might we make a way for concert goers to enter a venue without needing a ticket itself. So because that was the problem itself, then go after a feeling or adjective, because we're designing for a user experience. That becomes really important to focus on how the user is feeling while they're doing a certain activity. So how do we make it like maybe concert venue less stressful for ticket holders? Then question and assumption. So we are kind of assuming that you will need a security check process, but what if that is not there completely and you do not require that as well? So this is just like a vague example. You can go through it on your own as well. Like using an analogy really helps at times, because it kind of fits the criteria or the process into a story and helps you visualize that, kind of making it easier for you to like explore ideas. So how might we kind of make it like playing a video game, or like using an unexpected resource such as like a new tech that is coming in. So think about and be updated with new resources. It also helps you like stand out, because you might know of some new tech that is already there that others might not, or might even surprise the interviewer at times. So maybe a new VUI, voice user interface, or new AI technology that can be used to solve the problem. So in this case, maybe facial recognition is the tech that helps you not have a ticket and still enter the concert with security, which is similar to like airport check-ins as well. Now coming to wireframing. So after you have ideated and kind of expanded towards like variety of ideas, now like wireframe and create a workflow. Sometimes specific to like a specific point of time where the user is, so it boils down to one screen, especially in case of like a dashboard or like a checkout screen. Those are some examples, but most of the time it will be like entire workflow of things. So then it becomes important to like say like what are the different steps the user is taking, how their experience is changing. Maybe you can pick up one screen from there, like where the experience is actually dipping or which is of most priority. You can even discuss with the interviewer like which screen would you want to me to visualize, because it becomes important to align there itself as well. And then it's very kind of acceptable to like just create like a box wireframe. Think more vocally about the ideas that you're going kind of putting there through what could be like the different UIs or how you're visualizing things. It's more about that. And a lot of people ask like how many screens are enough. So because you can already ask them if it is about multitude of ideas, I would say like 3 to 4 different screens. Especially if it's a mobile screen, it's easier to like create like multitude. But if it's like a web, maybe you can even like break it down into different components or like different parts, especially in case of a dashboard where you're trying to like visualize different data, and then trying to iterate over that. And then the last part comes to summarize. It's really important to summarize the whole structure of what you have gone through to like come to a solution and how that would help. This also gives you an opportunity to kind of cover up what you have missed. Maybe there was some problem that or some question that you had asked them and then missed out on like taking that property forward into your solution. You can go ahead and do that at this point. You can even reflect upon your process. Like let's say you jumped straight to the solution, but you think like now you would have like first given more time to the discovery phase of evaluating what is the actual problem that you should solve for. This is the time to kind of acknowledge that and kind of say what mistakes you have made in the entire process. Also good time to like if you see like you've done everything perfectly, kind of highlighting your process, what were the different ideas, why you think this is the specific solution that will work, then kind of mapping that solution back to the metric that you had defined in the initial stage itself. So that will kind of seal the deal for you of coming to like a good solution. It might not be the best solution, but it's okay like to follow the process and be clear with your thinking. So yeah, I think mainly, and then what I used to do is also I created a prompt of like this specific framework itself, like mentioning different steps of like brainstorming and how do you understand the users, and then put it onto like Gemini to kind of for it to like kind of visualize and do the whiteboarding for me, and to see like how differently or different variety of ideas it is able to produce. And that really helps me like build up my vocabulary or like my set of ideas that I can think of, like pick up from whenever I go for a new whiteboarding session. So yeah, mainly that. Just share my screen presentation back again. So this is the resource. We'll give the link to you by the end when you like fill in the feedback. There are like some common mistakes that you should particularly avoid. So some of the general ones are like not thinking about time management. Once you know that it is a 30-minute or a 45-minute or a 1 hour session, you should plan, okay, how much time you will give to like the different steps that are there. Um, Keep like a timer or a stopwatch to do that. And it's really important to like kind of call that out. It helps you kind of showcase empathy towards the interviewer's time as well. So make sure to like stick to that and not kind of overbleed, and also helps you like make sure you reach at least one solution towards the end. Then secondly, it's about sometimes like you need time to think, right? At times when you're especially ideating, but all of the other times I think you should be like speaking whatever you're thinking. But maybe you can take some time of 5 minutes or like 2 minutes by the start, when you're just given the problem statement, to just think about the steps that you will take to not be like stuck in the middle. But once those few minutes are over towards the initial thing, you should be like very clear and vocal about whatever you're doing and why you're doing certain things. And even like going back and forth towards your like exercise is okay. Then one of the some of the things that I used to do is, firstly, I used to not define a persona, and used to be so much troublesome because all the characteristics of the users would be all over the place, and then it would have been like really difficult to like find that out, map that back to the problem statement. So persona really helps like streamline your entire workflow there. uh, Constraints become really important, like which specific market, which specific like geo you're designing for, what is the time frame to think about, like if it is short term, long term. Those kind of things become really important. Like, do you create it for a mobile or a web, or like maybe a physical mode? Those sort of things you should get clarity towards the defining phase itself. And it's really important because you cannot do like multitude of things in like 1 hour, right? So try to solve for like one specific user problem for one specific user group, with all the constraints that are possible for you to know. And I also feel the breadth of ideas is more important than the depth in ideation, because fleshing out the ideas can be done a little later. But the variety of ideas that you're able to think about, you're mostly judged based on that. um, and it's kind of should be clear enough to envision the depth, or like to what extent it can be refined or fleshed out. Lastly, it's I was not being adaptable in some of the cases. Like at some points in the whiteboarding, you would be exposed to some new information, and what do you do at that point? You cannot just go ahead and in the way that you have been going about, like it might have the impact to like change the problem itself, or change the persona or behavior itself as well, right? Or like who we are trying to target. So then go ahead and do that, because if you're kind of moving forward without like acknowledging that information, it means that you're not acknowledging, and you're like solutioning for the wrong thing or the wrong problem itself as well. And lastly, what really helps is like practicing. So practice with your friends, practice on your own. Even Topmate is there, so you can even book sessions and practice with an expert there and get feedback, more specific feedback there as well. And how you can stand out is basically coming with unconventional solutions. It can be like based on the technology, different modes of thinking. So I've tried to like give examples in how to like think about the problem statement from different angles, that will help you like create multitude of ideas or think about from a different variety. And then storytelling, communication skills, try to like not be stuck. If you have that framework in your mind, you'll be able to like not be stuck and move forward in the process no matter what. And come back to if there was a mistake or anything as well. So be open to that and not be stuck. Use the framework. um, yeah, and looking to the problem from different lenses. It should not be like you're looking at it from like one specific person. Or try to like maybe see from the perspective of even like secondary or tertiary users at times as well. Sometimes the solution might lie there as well. So not be stick to like one specific method, or even like specific format, or like it can only be solved for through a mobile app. It can The solution can lie in like maybe a tangible product as well. So yeah, mainly that was something that I had in mind to say. Opening up for Q&A, I think.
Uh, yeah, I'll help you with the question, Shivangi.
Okay.
Let me read out the questions. So we have a question from Rohan. How do you keep your thinking visible without overcrowding the whiteboard?
Right. Let me just stop sharing my screen. So what I try to do is I use like a fig jam and I try to kind of put in notes and with titles. So when I know what framework I'm using, I'll know what is the structure of my whiteboarding going to be like. So if I'm going to do define and just gathering information from the interviewer, I'll just give one note, sticky note to it and just write everything down there, and then I kind of highlight the parts that are important, because not everything of it will be important for you to move to the next step. So just make that sure, and then when you refer back, you can just read through maybe the bold text, and it feels more clear, even though the thoughts are scattered, because that's the messy process to kind of ideate, right?
Cool. So folks who are asking like, will we get the Figma link? Yes, yeah, we'll be sharing the Figma link after the session, and the session is also being recorded. You will get the recording probably in a day or two. And also, folks, feel free to leave questions in the Q&A section. We have a good 15 minutes time, so let's use this time. Coming to the next question, we have a question from Disha. Is it advisable to diagram and sketch out our thinking by hand during the interview?
Yeah, so it depends on the problem statement. If you're like using like maybe a crazy eight method, it's best to like sketch out on a paper, or like maybe a iPad that you're using, but then make sure that you have that tech handy, because most of the whiteboarding are happening like virtually, right? So have that handy so that the interviewer is able to see in real time what you're trying to sketch. Usually that becomes the constraint there. If that helps you like think better, then like kind of it makes sense to go ahead and do that.
Cool. Next, we have a couple of questions from Srinivas. The first question is, how does the nature of whiteboarding session evolve based on its duration? Say 45 minutes versus 90 minutes versus 3 or even 6 hours, which I don't think 3 or 6 hours whiteboarding is a thing, uh, especially when comparing remote screen sharing to in-person physical whiteboarding formats. So basically, to summarize, like
Right.
Srinivas' question is like how whiteboarding evolves based on time from 45 minutes to 90 minutes, or versus physical versus remote whiteboarding sessions.
So what I've seen is a pattern from like starts from like 30 minutes to it goes up, can go up to like 2 hours. Haven't seen like more than that or less than that. So usually in 30 minutes, the goal is to like come to like one working screen of showing your like ideas, and doesn't mean like it's very in depth and just one screen. It can be like more ideation of like different approaches in the text itself as well. Like it could be done in this way, that way, but then you pick up one specific line or one idea to like explore in the wireframe. Sometimes it's even a combination, like they might whiteboard with you towards the starting, but then give it to you as a take home assignment, which is kind of painful, but then it happens a lot of times. When it scales to like 1 hour is like the standard format that I've seen. It can be like 5 or 6 wireframes if it's a mobile screen, and then multitude of ideas. But if it goes more than that, it is more about like more time you can spend on the discovery phase, basically, of validating the problem. What is the right problem to like solve for? How would you approach this problem if you were in a real life situation and in working in this company trying to solve that problem? So there are aspects like what would you the be the research methods that you'll use, who will you kind of research with, what would be your research questions to them, or even like how would you collaborate with your product manager or researchers to come to like a optimal solution for it. Those sort of things become important there as well.
Great. There's a follow-up question on that. Additionally, how does the presence of an interviewer, whether online or physical in the room, impact a candidate's mindset or performance during the sessions?
I haven't like done a lot of like in-person whiteboarding sessions, so I'm not sure if I'm the best person to like. I think in whiteboarding, with the experience of very less that I've done in the physical space, it feels more intimidating towards the starting because it's like happening in person and the person is like right in front of you. But I think it gives you a room to like open up and like connect with them a little bit more, because it's not the first thing that you're going to do when you're starting the whiteboarding. You'll get to know them a little better because you're in person. So towards the end you will find maybe you're coming up with like better solutions, or like think about like kind of be able to like present the wackiest ideas that you have in your mind, which can be a little bit of a constraint to like get over in a virtual space.
Dhwani, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, actually, I have given few in-person whiteboarding sessions. So one I gave for SAP, where I'm currently working, and it was so when somebody asked if it could go on for 6 hours, my interviews went on for 3 hours, and it was just whiteboarding. So it was pretty stressful and intimidating, but I got to know the team so well that I was kind of convinced in that round that I am joining here if I get in. So, and as you said, even like the craziest ideas I had, they were encouraging it. So I could talk about it and didn't even feel like neglecting them, which I would have definitely done if it was a virtual whiteboarding.
Great. Uh, so the next question is how to approach a scenario when the task is centered around a niche domain, which you may not have much knowledge about. Can you spend some minutes doing a brief secondary research as it the part of process you usually be, as well?
Yeah, so that usually happens when you're going for like maybe a smaller company, which will try to like frame the question in the same industry or be about like the same product that you'll be working with. This is to make sure you understand the space a little bit better. So it's best to like be prepared before the interview itself, like learn about a little bit what the competes are doing, what are the new features coming in the product, those sort of things, so that you don't feel like you need to go now and do the secondary, because you will not have time to do that in the whiteboarding. Um, Second way to approach that is maybe you did all that pre-study and then you're not able to figure out what the problem is. Then it's okay to like make assumptions, but make sure to be clear on that and align on that with the interviewer, because you would not know like everything and anything about like the new company that you are interviewing for, right? So it's okay to like make assumptions, but like put that out there and then align to those assumptions when you're solutioning for it.
Okay, next we have a question from Disha. Do you think that how might we direction should be done before the crazy eight?
So it's not before and after, it's kind of either or, but it can be like clubbed up as well. How might we is kind of framing questions to like open you up to ideas, whereas Crazy Eight is basically like wireframing different ideas or visualizing them. So you can utilize that for wireframing step towards the end as well. So it can be clubbed, but I would recommend like go for one and then, because I have felt like I've tried to do Crazy Eight, but you're not able to like think of a lot of variation of ideas. Like the landscape becomes very restricted to just the UI of how you're representing those things. So therefore, I would recommend How Might We's more frequently, like more valuable than Crazy Eight in a whiteboarding.
Yeah. So before we jump to the next set of questions, so what I would do is like I would put a feedback link in the chat. So I'm just give me a second. I'll just share the link, and also you can use the QR code to share your feedback. Uh, so once you submit the feedback, you will be able to get access to the Figma file that Shivangi was sharing. So please feel free to fill the feedback. Then you will get the um, Figma link. Now let's resume back to the questions. We have a question from Viraj. At Amazon, we use whiteboard challenges heavily during interviews to assess structured thinking and problem framing under time constraints. But in actual project work, collaboration and research plays a much bigger role. One challenge I have noticed that even among experienced teammates is clearly defining assumptions and user goals under time pressure. Curious to hear your thoughts on how we can better align whiteboard practices with real world UX workflows.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I realized when I started whiteboarding, I thought like it would be like really straightforward because I've worked in a company, I've done a lot of internships, and it can map back to like how you collaborate and do working sessions with your teammates. But it's really very different because you know that they're trying to judge you. You can't really collaborate and ask for a lot of feedback. So it's kind of driven by you, but you're also trying to take inputs and understand from them. I don't know if I can imagine it in a different way. It can be if the time constraint is not there, maybe, or if the problem statement itself is so well defined already, that we can like iterate upon maybe the landscape of ideas, but then it kind of constrains you to not think about like the entire design process but restricting to just the creativity or idea forming aspect of things, right? Because what whiteboarding does is it's not just that, it's also about kind of how is your product discovery, strategic thinking, making sure you're solving the right problem even before going to the problem and solving, and thinking of different ideas, right? So I would like love to like discuss and think about it more. I don't have like a answer upfront.
Cool. Next, we have a question from Normal. I have a similar extensive framework, but many at times the problem that I face is which of these questions and concepts from the framework should I bring up in the session? Because I won't be able to go through all these concepts in the time frame given, mostly 45 minutes or 1 hour. How do you break the time in case this is a 1 hour whiteboarding exercise?
Right. So in the framework itself, I've actually put down the some time. So this is an exercise you do before the whiteboarding round, because you'll know like if it is a 1 hour or like in half an hour or 45 minutes. So try to keep more time for, I think for my framework, it has like 5 steps. And I feel like summary is something that can be like completely done in a minute, or at times even be skipped if you have been like more vocal about the entire 4 step process that is before that. Um, the even in the 4 things that are before summarizing, I feel it's important to focus more on the discovery and ideation. Wireframing is not so important because you're anyway going to like make just box diagrams, and then haven't seen a lot of people like judge that. It's more about like how vocal you are about the variety of ideas and finding out the right problem to solve for. Then defining should be quick, like you should not take a lot of time to like define the problem statement in one sentence, although you should be open to like modulate that based on new information that comes your way. So that helps you like align. So I feel like this 5 step process, that's why I work, because two of them uh, are like really important, that you can give like major chunk of time from like 15 to 20 minutes, and then some of them like defining the problem and summarizing can even be like as short as 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay, have a question from Karthik. How far we can go to defending our solutions when it is being challenged?
I mean that this is a solution that you just thought about in an hour. I don't think you should be very defensive, because that is something that you came up with like, that is where it becomes important that you kind of highlight the assumption, the problem you're solving. It becomes very straightforward and easy for the interviewer also to understand why you came up with that solution, and then it leaves very less scope for any such like way for you to prove like this is the right solution or not, right? So how do you make sure that you do that, so that you don't end up in a situation, even if you do post that, it will like make a logical sense through the storytelling. You can talk about, okay, maybe Ria is a person who does that, and these are her problems, and that's where this solution comes in, and this is how this will help her. Just this framework will help you like kind of defend the problem statement itself and why you feel that this will help, right? And everyone can have differences, and I think most interviewers are open to like acknowledge that.
Can
We'll
I
take.
add something to this? Actually, so when we are interviewing people, usually what we tell them is that come up with solutions, but the solutions, as Shivangi already mentioned, you come up with them in such a limited amount of time that they will not be correct. But the point is that you give in your ideas and you're open to feedback, because all your solutions will be challenged, because the interviews know what is probably the best solution for the use case. So just be open to feedback and don't be very defensive, because they usually judge that too during your interviews, how open you are to all the stakeholders and the feedback they are giving to you.
Thank you, Dhvani. Uh, sure, we are right on time. Probably will take like one or two more questions, and rest of the unanswered questions we will try. We will see like if we can answer them async and probably share those, yeah, answers async through a document via email. So we'll take couple more questions. So we have a question from Rohit: how to handle questions that thrown while we thinking about solutions during whiteboarding.
How to think, like answer questions.
How to handle questions that was
Mm.
thrown while we are thinking about solutions during whiteboarding.
Right. So because it's an interactive process, they're trying to like get a better view of how you're thinking about the problem space. The questions are mostly towards how you're thinking about it, or like how do you feel about a specific persona. Have you faced like maybe a similar problem? Do you know about like competes and those sort of things? So it's kind of good to acknowledge them. Sometimes maybe when you're in the train of thought, it's okay to like mention that you'll take that later once you're done with this. But most of the time it's a way to like kind of nudge you to the right problem as well, so you have to take those clues as well, because you might be like solving for the wrong problem itself as well, and they might be trying to like give you interrupt you and give you some more information that you kind of pivot your path of solving for it.
Thank you. I have a question from Bharti Raja. Can you guys quickly show an example like a mock whiteboard session? Bharti Raja, thanks for the idea. Since given the limited time, we won't be able to do a mock whiteboard session, but we'll probably like add this to our session ideas, and we'll see if we can set up a different session where we do like a mock whiteboarding session. We'll take like one final question. We have a question from Apuva. Uh, do you already have a template in place in whiteboard, something that outlines where to put what, or do you start with a blank whiteboard? And which tool do you use? Figma, FigJam, Miro.
Yeah, so my personal thing is like don't start with that, have that in your mind. Maybe once you have practiced through that framework, it will automatically come to you. I usually don't stick to even that framework. I think like I just have that at the back of my mind, and then see what fits for the problem statement, and then modulate or change that framework based on my understanding. Sometimes when I get stuck, I move to the workflow, or like start with a wireframing even before maybe starting the ideation. So the underlying thing is like don't feel like you have come too prepared for this. Like come with like a raw thing, and just come with like yourself and with your ideas.
Great. So we came towards end of the session. Thank you so much, Shivangi, for taking time and sharing us a lot of insights. I know it would have taken like a lot of time for you to collate all these resources. I'm also like have to go through all the resources. That was like very insightful and detailed. Um, and thank you so much to each and every one of the attendees who took time on a Saturday morning to attend the session. As I mentioned, we couldn't, given the limited time, we couldn't answer all of your questions. We'll try to answer the questions async and share you the answers. Um, Please follow all our social channels. Dwani have sent the links on our chat. Follow us for to know more about our upcoming events. And if you haven't filled the feedback form, kindly fill the feedback form. It will help us to curate the content for you, like what worked, what is not working, and also you will be able to get the resources that Shivangi was showing once you fill the feedback form. No worries if you haven't filled the feedback form now. We will be sending an email after the session, we'll attach the feedback link as well, where you can fill the feedback form and again access the link. Again, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.